G'day, John Curtis, FIDE Master, Australia. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to a profiling of a young woman in Australian chess that made some inroads in her day when she represented Australia at the Olympic Games, in the Women's Olympics in Luzern in Switzerland in 1982. And the person we're talking about today is Anne Slavotinek. Anne Slavotinek, she got a medical degree in the University of Adelaide in Australia, where the great Carlos Lidham's tournament was played. You know, where all the grandmasters came from overseas around about that period. And she got her MD and PhD and was Professor of Paediatrics now, School of Medicine, Co Principal Investigator into Genomic Sequencing to aid the diagnosis in paediatric and prenatal practices, basically looking after the future generations of children of mankind. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Anyway, that's where she's dedicated her career. And we in chess are very, very lucky to have had the benefit of Anne's involvement in our community, and we're very proud of her. So anyway, I'm going to show you her game today. Without further ado, we'll get into the game. It's played between Nava.Starr. She was from Canada. She's a women's international master, and Anne played her again in 1988 in Thessaloniki Greece in the Olympics, and Anne won that game. But we're going to be looking at this game today and see how it goes. It's E4, E5, Knight F3, all book moves, D4, takes, Knight F6, attacks the pawn, protects the pawn, Bishop E7, preparing to castle, Bishop C4, castles, rook castles, and now one would think knight takes pawn to be played. That's right, you normally take the pawn, and the engine is saying take the pawn, and the whole idea is if the knight recaptures, the pawn will fork the knight and bishop, and that's going to happen anyway. But first, black decides to play a little waiting move to try to prevent any knight to b5 moves that might attack her pawn structure, and also to have the possibility of playing b5 and expanding her pawn structure. For instance, if in this position b5 was played, right, and then the bishop returned here, the pawn could hit the knight and then hit the bishop, and we'd have a Noah's Ark trap and a bishop would be lost. I doubt whether Anne would allow that, because she's a bit too experienced for that, being a Women's Olympic representative for Australia. She'd know about the Noah's Ark trap, I'm pretty well sure. But it's amazing how you can fall for that. You can be blinded sometimes and overlook a simple thing like that in a game and get into a comfort zone. Knight takes pawn, knight takes. And the whole idea is black's trying to relieve the pressure of one of the minor pieces. Just get rid of one of the minor pieces and develop from there. It gives white a leading edge in development. As you can see, the engine on the side of the board is saying that after the exchanges and the recapture by the bishop with the star move or best move, that white's got a very slight edge. So G6 is played. Seems to be a weakening of the king's side, but white was threatening to possibly invade on the white squares near that king at some stage. Black's just jumped in and stopped it prematurely, I'd say, weakening a king like that. I think bishop f6 was a better move. Rook e8, the engine's saying, was a good move too. So bishop h6, straight on the old rook. Rook moves to e8. And white's got a big advantage. Rook to e1. White's got all the minor pieces are working. Black's got this problem with the knight on b8, right? You must develop your minor pieces. And you'll see that this is going to come into play later, the problems with that knight. So knight to f3 is played. That stops the bishop going to e5, for instance. Black had the possibility of playing bishop to e5 and then going bishop to e5 and then going back along that diagonal to g7. Right, let's have a look. Bishop g5. Knight c6 was a better move. It was more balanced. Oh, sorry, not that one. Black is even more adventurous than that. Black plays bishop b4. Wants to change off queens. White doesn't like the idea of black doesn't like the idea of white having queens on the board. So this is a forced variation. Right, and now the bishop returns to f8. Best move, trying to eliminate that dangerous bishop. And correctly, Anne moves away and threatens the c-pawn because white's got full development. The trouble is it's very, very hard to penetrate the position. The white bishop seems to be on an awkward square. It's on a good square, but it's on an awkward square. And one would think that in this position, if the white bishop was, say, over here, then white would have threats like knight g4, right? And on attack on this pawn here, right? This little pawn. Okay, so the white bishop is the piece that's misplaced here. So let's have a look. Let's see what the engine says. c6. Now bishop c2. I think it's a good move. And the engine's saying knight to g5. And I'll tell you why. The engine wants to, in this position, the engine wants to play knight to g5, right? So the knight can take the pawn off, and if the king retakes, the bishop takes pawn check, and the rook drops down the back, right? What a sneaky thing to do. But that would be a winning attack. If it was allowed, of course, but I doubt whether our friend would be allowing that, because she's actually quite a good defender, Nava.Starr. So because she's a Canadian Women's International Master, she didn't get the title for nothing, so she knows how to play chess. Rook to e8. It's a logical move. Knight g5 was the best move, threatening bishop to b3. Let's have a look. And also the knight could retreat, if attacked, to this e4 square. So if the knight gone there, it could have also had the possibility of bouncing back here to e4, where it's far more effective. Might be able to go to d6. Okay. Right. b5 is played. And let's have a look at what should be played here. I like rook to d8 because black wants to play bishop b7. So, but you want to stop him. You want to stop black playing bishop b7. So why not play rook d8? If the knight moves, you can play bishop h6. White played an inaccuracy, king f1. Rook d8 was the best move. Now bishop b7 is played, and now white correctly just exchanges. But white missed an opportunity there. She managed to, Anne managed to get her rook on the back rank. It just missed that little finesse, rook to d8, which would have given her that little extra. Black would have played king g7, admittedly, and made it hard for her. King g7 was a possibility. Yeah, king g7, freeing the bishop. But black would still be tied in knots. Right, so bishop recaptures. Knight e5. Well, what else? There's no other move. Knight's not doing anything on f3. Now that's a good move. That's a star move, best move. It says knight takes e5 was the alternative. It's just a drawn position. I think that's what we're going to see here. So c takes b. F3, stopping any entry squares on E4. Bishop D5, improving the bishop. So it's got the long diagonal both ways. So it's increased the range of that bishop. So if you want to win these pretty level positions, that's what you've got to do. So Anne's opponent, Nava.Starr, plays well. She always plays a good game. I've played through a few of her games. She always plays well. Knight goes back to D3. It's a good move. Knight G4 was best, apparently. So a little check, but it can all be stopped. Bishop pins the knight. King E2. Right. F6. Well, I don't know what that is. It's a good move according to the engine. A5 was best. Yeah. If the game was ever going to be won, you'd have to win it on the queen side. You cannot win a game like this on the king side. You just can't do it. You've got to win where the pieces are, where the pieces have got possibilities of infiltration, possibilities of some sort of finesse, right? Right. King to D2. Knight back. Star move. Best move. Bishop E3. And now have a look. See where the knight can move here? The knight can move there. The knight can move here. And the knight can move there. And guess what? All those squares are covered by white's bishop. Anne's bishop is controlling everything. And my God, what a pretty little pattern it forms too. Anyway. Right, bishop D6. Excellent move. Threatens a pawn. And G3, what does that do? Nullifies the bishop. It nullifies it. So that bishop's scope is reduced. King F7, that's right. You've got to get your pieces working if you want to win. Knight goes back. Good move. Knight B4 was best. F5. Knight D3. Well, I'm just going to go back. I'm going to stop F4 because it was a possibility, last move, that black was threatening F4 and trying to break up those pawns. Black could break up those pawns into pawn islands, 2 pawn islands with an F4 move. Well, then that would be an advantage to black, and maybe black could work towards some sort of advantage. F4, A5 at last. Bishop there, backwards. B3 was a better move. Apparently just... I don't like B3 in that position myself. Engine likes it. A4, star move. All that is, it's just restricting. You can see black's got slight initiative, but it's so small, it's insignificant. Not a winning initiative. Bishop E3, H6. I don't know what H6 does. Knight to E1. Knight E4 was a possibility. Yes, it was a possibility, but Bishop D5, Bishop C6. Oh, well, there's nothing of it though. Bishop D5 is played anyway. And now the bishop is redirected, the white bishop's redirected, and correctly so, to Bishop D3. And it's pushed, pawn's pushed. Now, Nava just realises that she's better off to push the pawn and just eliminate any chances of losing the game. Because it's very drawish here now. Bishop checks. Bishop goes over and attacks the pawn. So bishop takes knight is now threatened. Bishop B3 is played. And the black bishops ensure that white cannot get any closer to the pawn with the king. Knight to D3 is played. Knight takes knight. King takes knight. And a draw is agreed here after bishop, king there, E7, bishop there, and now that's a draw. Yeah, so you could have a repeat the position with bishop here and bishop there, and there's nowhere good to put the bishop except here, and or D6, with the idea of G4, but you can't. The problem is basic chess. you can't, you've got to be careful. White might be threatening this move. That would be a dangerous move if White was able to play that, because White would be threatening bishop takes bishop and king to c4 wins. And you could go back here. Unfortunately, you can go back there. Bishop here would be a problem with the idea of bishop here and bishop there. But by then, if you go that way, black's come up and goes this way too. So it all balances itself out. Looks like it's just a dead draw. But anyway, a draw is a good result for Australia at the Women's Olympics in Luzern, Switzerland in 1982. So we thank Anne for her efforts there, and in Thessaloniki in 1988. And I did see a good game. If you want to go and have a look at chessgames.com, if you want to look at one of Anne's really fighting defences, it was played the Dutch Championship in round 2 in 2008. It was an Italian game, an Evans Gambit. So White played the Evans Gambit against Anne. She got a little bit of bother earlier on, but she fought back and she actually won the game. Won in good style too, actually, against Laura Bensdorp in the second round of the Dutch Championship. Okay, it was a Mises defence. So it was an Italian game, Evans Gambit, Mises defence. Yeah. Anyway, listen, thank you very much for joining me today. I'm going to sign off now. If you like the video, please click the thumbs up and subscribe free for notification of further YouTube videos to come from me. And any donations in support of my channel can be made at the PayPal link in the video. So once again, I thank you, and I'll catch you again in my next video. John Curtis, Video Master from Australia, saying goodbye for now.